Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Now in today's video we're going to be discussing something really important which was flagged up by one of my Instagram followers who asked me, Nikita, what happens once your 3 years of your work visa is done? Are you thrown out of your NHS job or do you have to find another job while you are in the UK? And today's video is going to answer this specific question. But for those of you who haven't already followed me on Instagram, now's your turn to do so. My handle is physiotherapy in UK. And also, those of you who are coming to the UK as a student in the year 2023 or in 2024 and are looking for accommodation but haven't found one, do not forget to give these guys, Amber students, a big shout out because they are the ones who will be helping you to find accommodation not only in London but across all of the cities in the UK based on your university. So you will be able to find accommodation based on your needs near your university with all of the bills included so that you don't have to worry about who is paying and when you're going to default on a council tax payment. So definitely give these guys a shout because you're really helpful in helping you find your next room in the UK. So let's just talk about what are the 3 scenarios that happens when you have a work visa for 3 years. So the first thing that can possibly happen is obviously that you decide to go back to India. That's obviously first scenario. The second scenario is that you will try to get a job within your NHS trust or ask them to extend your visa. And the third scenario is that you look for job opportunities outside your NHS trust. So like I've explained to you before, usually your work visas in the UK when you start working in the NHS as a physiotherapist, occupational therapist, speech and language therapist or any other professional, you're usually granted a work visa for up to 3 years in the UK. In that 3 years, you are allowed to obviously stay, live and work in the UK within that particular profession as far as you complete all of the requirements of your work visa. Now again, once that sort of work visa term is up, the first scenario that you can choose to opt for is you decide to go back to India. So say for example, you've come to the UK, you've not really liked it, you feel like it's too expensive, you're missing your family, you're not getting food that you would generally prefer, then it's absolutely fine for you to say, Nikita, this life is not for me. I want to head back to India. And that's exactly what you do. So in terms of if you want to do that, just remember guys that you have up to 30 days once your work visa gets over to go back to India. If you continue to stay in the UK on a work visa that is not valid, so say for example it is completed and if you've stayed in the UK for beyond 30 days, then that is counted as illegal stay and you have higher chances of being deported on that specific visa. So please make sure if you choose to not live in the UK after your work visa is expired, that you go back to India, go back to your home country within the first 30 days. So now coming down to the second scenario, which is you would like to extend your visa with the same employer. So say for example, you've been working as a band 5 or a band 6 physio for over 3 years and now that it's coming up to the term of 3 years, you decide that you want to continue to be in the UK for that same employer. What you want to do in this particular situation is obviously reach out to your line manager and to your HR at least about 4 to 6 months in advance. Now why am I suggesting that? So firstly, if any of y'all are looking into working in the UK, you would know that there's something which is a very special document issued to you by your employer, which is known as your certificate of sponsorship or your COS. Now this certificate of sponsorship is the crucial and the most important document for you to apply for your work visa, and using that you will get something known as your BRP, which is your biometric residence permit. This is the card that shows your work visa validity and shows how long you can live and stay in the UK or work in the UK. Now like I've said before, the COS is issued to you by your HR and the employer. Now what is most important to remember is obviously that HR departments will take a certain amount of time to process all of your documents and the sort of legal aspects of you working in the UK, but also that they need to pay for that document. Now obviously you will know that there are about 10,000 vacancies in the NHS at the minute and they really do not want to lose you if they can retain you for whatever reason possible. So if you know that your work visa is going to be expiring really soon, I would say give the HR and your line manager at least like a 4 to 6 month advance notice on this. The reason is obviously that the HR then needs to start processing all of the documents so that you can be issued a new COS, because based on that new COS you will make a new visa application and then only then will you get your new work visa to work in the UK. Now again, the most important thing for you to remember is that you give your prior notice to your HR or to your manager so that they can start processing these documents as early as possible. Another most important point for you to remember is that when you receive your new BRP card after the visa application, you need to make sure that you cut up the old BRP card and send that back to the Home Office. Now, if you do not remember to do so, you will be charged up to £1,000 fine. So make sure that all of you tear up or cut your old BRP card and send that over to the Home Office, because this is going to avoid you a big fine. And once you obviously get your new BRP card, what you need to do is take that BRP card and go to your employer and show them that, or give them a proof of it, so that they can add it to your file, which shows that you are again eligible to work in the UK for another 3 years. Now you would say, Nikita, why am I doing all of this? Why do I need to cut up that old BRP card? The reason is because there are a lot of frauds going on with people trying to stay in the UK illegally, and they might use your old BRP card for these reasons. So therefore, it's recommended that you cut it up and send it back to the Home Office. Now, what is really important is that, like I said, you do this sort of process at least 4 to 6 months in advance, so that it gives the HR enough time to process your costs. Now, again, if any of you all are confused about how you can use your work visa to turn into an ILR, which is the PR in the UK, and be a permanent citizen in the UK, please do not forget to check out this video, because it has explained the whole process from you going from your work visa to your ILR to your British citizenship. So do not forget to check this video out, guys. Now again, why am I suggesting that you meet your HR or your line manager to discuss this at least 4 to 6 months in advance? The reason is, if you do not check the date on your BRP and say for whatever reason miss the date, you have only up to 15 days once your BRP or your old BRP has expired to make a new visa application. And like I said, obviously the employer needs to issue you a new certificate of sponsorship, which might obviously take time, and you need to collect a few documents which might take time. So say for whatever reason, if you miss that deadline of 15 days, you have a very high risk of again not making a valid work visa application within that time, and you might be deported back to India. But say, for example, you can, in some extenuating circumstances, make the visa application after that initial 15 days of your old BRP card getting expired. But in those situations, you need to give a very valid and strong reason for why you have not been able to make a visa application within the first 15 days. Now, like I said, if you are somebody who wants to be stress-free and avoid that worry, please try and have these conversations at least 4 to 6 months in advance with your line managers and your HR, so that it saves you all the stress and you are ready to make a new visa application as and when you need it, and avoid the chance of being deported back to India or back to any other home country that you've come from. Back to the third scenario, which is if you are obviously working with your NHS employer but for some reason do not want to continue there. So say, for example, either you want to sort of progress to a higher role, say for example a band 7 vacancy, which obviously your NHS employer doesn't have, and you therefore start looking at all of the NHS trusts around you. Or say for example, you are living in London and you find London is too expensive and you're ready to settle down with your family in a city or in a rural area or a city that's outside London, then that's absolutely fine. That's a decision you make, and you decide to move employers. What is the process for you? So the process is, obviously you firstly need to start looking out for jobs before you meet that sort of 3-year mark. So I would say start looking out for jobs by the second year, or within sort of 2 years, 4 months within that job, so that you have given yourself enough time to look for new jobs within the field that you're looking out for. Now, if any of you all are confused about how to make those job applications, I would recommend checking out this playlist, which has highlighted all of the process. But for those of you who are confused about how to make those job applications or even land those interviews, I would recommend booking a one-to-one session with me, where we will go through the entire process, and I would give you some really good tips on how you can enhance your applications for yourself. But say once you've landed that job, what I would ask you to do is obviously go through all of the employment checks and all of the sort of occupational health checks that you need to for that specific job. And once you've done all of that, that employer will then issue a certificate of sponsorship. Now, please guys, do not make the mistake of resigning from your previous job before you received your certificate of sponsorship. There are 2 reasons for that. Usually you are asked to serve a notice of at least about 1 to 2 months with your previous employer before you start taking up employment at your new employer's place. So if you make a decision to resign before you've even received the cost from your next employer, there are high chances that there might be some delays in cost, and that will lead to a gap in your employment. And if you are somebody who wants to avoid that, I would say do not put in your resignation before you've received the cost from your employer, especially your new employer. Now, coming down to another last question that some of you may have, which is, Nikita, what if I decide to change my employer before the 3-year mark? The answer is you can absolutely do that. It's up to your discretion, especially if you decide you want to work in a different setting or want to move cities. However, remember that every time you change an employer, you will have to make a new visa application, which is obviously going to have some cost. Considering the fact that you have a dependent, the costs are going to be even higher. So keep that in mind, especially while you are deciding to change jobs or look for another place of employment within the 3-year mark. Another question that many of y'all have is, Nikita, say for example, I will finish my work visa in this year, do I need to go back to India and then apply for the next work visa? And the answer is no. You can make your work visa applications while you are in the UK, provided you have the course either from the employer if you are extending your work visa, or from a new employer if you are looking to switch a job. Now, I hope you found this video useful, guys, and if you did, do not forget to give this video a big like, but also let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Take care, guys. Bye.